Hello and welcome back to Coffee and Kurosawa, the friendly film crit podcast. I am your friendly film fanatic, Ben Filipkowski.
And I am Farrah Sarpkaya, a person who loves film, but like in a super chill, sometimes I want to crochet, but also I want to watch a 70-year-old Japanese black and white film with subtitles, and it mostly works out sort of way.
And today we're talking about the 1996 Bruce Willis action movie, Last Man Standing. Sorry, hang on, I got that wrong. Today we're talking about the Sergio Leone spaghetti western, A Fistful of Dollars, starring Clint Eastwood. Crap, sorry, got it wrong again. I think I got it this time. Today, we're actually talking about Akira Kurosawa's massively influential samurai action movie, Yojimbo, released in 1961 and starring, who else? Toshiro Mifune and Tetsuya Nakadai. Yojimbo, which translates to bodyguard, concerns a wandering swordsman rolling up on a town gripped by a conflict between two rival Yakuza gangs. Our man with no name assesses the situation, realizes no one actually wants to end the violence, and decides he'll do it himself. His approach is simple. Get hired by one gang, approach the other with a deal, and gradually pit them against each other, picking off gangsters one by one until they're all dead. It's a remarkably effective plan, except for one hitch. One of the gangsters isn't as gullible as the rest, and worse, he's a mean shot with a revolver, which in 1860s Japan basically means he's unstoppable. I won't bother with the full details here, but suffice to say, our man with no name gets the upper hand, slaughters the bad guys, and brings much-needed peace and quiet to the town. If this all sounds familiar, and based on my intro there's a strong chance that it does, well, that's because everyone's taken a crack at adapting Yojimbo over the years, some legally, some not so legally. So, Farrah, we've watched the OG samurai movie by Kurosawa and Seven Samurai for this show, and we've also seen High and Low, which is a very different sort of Kurosawa flick. So, I gotta ask you, what'd you think of this one?
So, first things first, the gun thing, it made me think of a different movie that I don't remember that was something like, well, once your bullets run out, I think you're going to hope that you're dead. Or like the whole thing is like, you better hope that you're dead because I'm going to take care of you. And this had that vibe. But no, I think I really liked it. It was kind of noir-y, kind of like silly, kind of Shakespearean, but in that like Puck is making mischief kind of way. And I continued to really love how Kurosawa like frames images in a very like artful way, and just I don't know, man, I didn't even write my first impressions because really it comes down to I liked it and it was a fun watch and I would watch it again, and that's it. Like it's cool that it's in a bunch of everything. I think there's a bunch of tropes here yet again where I'm like, oh, I've seen that movie and I've seen that movie. I've seen that scene or I've seen that shot and I've seen whatever. And it's always fun now watching these when we do them that I'm like, okay, let's sit back and think of all the different movies and scenes and shots and whatever that are just based off of or inspired by this. And I think that's really fun. Which I think lends really well to lead into one of our first conversational guardrails, because I'm great at transitions, where we are actually going to talk a little bit about that, because this is kind of not a big deal, but like this was a big influence on a lot of movies. So You named a couple already at the top. Talk to me about what else we've got that you'll kind of see this film in.
For sure. Like the things that I'm naming up top, I think we got to like loop back to them a little bit because that 1996 movie Last Man Standing has like a gag in there somewhere, if memory serves, where they're like, adapted from the Sergio Leone movie A Fistful of Dollars ... which is based on Yojimbo, but like they kind of make a gag out of that. The Leone Western is like also worth pointing out. That is a hugely influential and iconic Western in its own right. That's like the birth of Clint Eastwood as the man with no name. It's the first in that trilogy of movies. That is an unauthorized remake of Yojimbo. Like it's just the same movie. It adds some interesting new things, but it was so similar that I think Leone and the producers had to settle out of court with Kurosawa once he watched it. He was complimentary, but it was kind of like, wow, my movie's very good. You made it again. Incredible. And it's jarring to watch these two back to back because it is the same exact movie, albeit with a few stylistic differences. Yeah, the kind of thing here though is that Yojimbo itself is a loose adaptation of two Dashiell Hammett novels, two like hard-boiled detective novels from the Dirty 30s. Those would be, I wrote them down, The Glass Key and Red Harvest. I think Red Harvest I've read years ago, and I think that one's a very the plot is, razor thin, I would say, in some regards, and it is just like, hey, guy shows up to town, proceeds to make a lot of money pitting two gangs against each other, and it's
Sure.
kind of that deal. And so I think that there's a lot that can be said about how like referenced this movie is, but it also lives in a broader conversation with other works that came before it. And I think we were talking before we hit record about this idea that like during his lifetime, Kurosawa was often accused of being too Western. Like he had too much of like the North American and European sensibilities in his movies. But I think that's because he's pulling from like John Ford Westerns. He's pulling from the films of David Lean and other directors. And then that gets synthesized into his visual style, into his like sensibilities as a creator, and gets broadcast out to the world. And then the world's like, that's cool, we're going to do that as well. So it's kind of like cross-pollination between cultures, which I think we can talk about a little bit more in the future. But this movie starts to surface in a lot of other different things. And we've talked a bit about, like we covered Seven Samurai, hugely influential movie, got remade as The Magnificent Seven, a Western, also got remade as A Bug's Life. That A Bug's Life is just Seven Samurai, but with Pixar bugs. And I think the other thing is that like this gets explicitly referenced in a lot of things, because I'm going to send you a link because I just wanted to get your reaction on on the podcast here.
Oh geez.
Because this is great, because I was talking to you about how like the most recent visual call out to this I saw was in the Star Wars TV series The Mandalorian. And like,
of course, it all comes back to Star Wars.
It all comes back to Star Wars. And I just sent Farrah a link that is it's the first episode of The Mandalorian where Ahsoka Tano shows up, and I was literally watching this on the couch, and I did the Leonardo DiCaprio like sit up and point at the screen meme, because I was like, oh, it's the thing, they're doing the thing,
they're doing the thing. That's
yeah.
very funny.
And
my God.
and I can't stress enough, like, because you've seen the movie, it's just that they're just doing that.
Yep.
And I'm talking about it's in the finale of Yojimbo, but it's our main character doing a slow, cool, badass walk towards the bad guys.
Yep.
They do the exact same thing in The Mandalorian. It shows up in other Star Wars things as well. I think it's in The Last Jedi, gets some references here. Yeah, like the Wikipedia entry for this movie just has like a copious section on legacy. So yeah, like the thing is that this is kind of like the birth of that like almost amoral man with no name character. Literally our lead, played by Toshiro Mifune, he doesn't have a name when we first meet him. When he introduces himself, he gives a name that everyone is like, are you kidding? That's such a made up name.
The camera lingers on the field across from him that he names himself after, right?
Yeah. He's doing a
It's
Usual
so
Suspects. The Usual Suspects. That movie with so Kevin Spacey, the Bryan Singer Kevin Spacey movie with Kaiser Schotze. And then the big reveal is that like everything that this character has been telling the cops has been like just like details he's picked up from the room and fed back to them.
Why, yes, I am white coffee mug.
Yeah.
And cell phone mic stand.
Yeah.
Haha. Michael, yes,
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah. My name's Mike Coffee Mug. Yes, of course. So this is the gag in Yojimbo, but he gets called out on it, where he introduces himself as Kuwabatake Sanjuro, which the subtitles translate for us as Mulberry Field, 30 years old. though he does admit he's closer to 40. Everyone's like, "Are you serious?" And he's like, "Ah, it worked. Fine. Just go with it. It's fine. Don't worry
Yeah.
about it." Um, so,
Oh my
uh,
god.
yeah,
It's
it's
so
just
good.
there's a real vibe to this movie, I think, and I,
Mm-hmm.
I love the kind of like it's very stylish. The humor in it is pitch black gallows humor at times. He comes into this town, and I think it's like the constable greets him and is like, "You should go work for this gangster because he'll probably pay you more." And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
"Wait, you're a cop, dude. Why are you giving me this recommendation?" And then a dog runs down the street carrying a severed
With the
hand,
hand.
which gives us like a sense of what we're in for here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like it's a hard-boiled samurai movie, and
Mm-hmm.
it makes sense because it's very loosely inspired by Dashiell Hammett novels,
Mm-hmm.
and I love that for it.
Yeah, and you got to hand it to the dog. It did a great job. I'm so sorry. I'm not sorry. No, it really speaks to this idea that nothing is new and that's okay.
Yeah,
Like I had a shout out to Professor Litwack in Philosophy 101 at Hearst-Monceau when I went to school there. His whole thing during one of our lessons was like nothing is new, and it's because we all exist within a culture and we all are sponges, and that's great because we all take that and we translate it in ways that make sense to us, make sense to our context. It's why we have 5 million different versions of Seven Samurai, and some of them are in the West and some are in space and some are whatever, and that's really cool. And I don't know, the part of what I love about what we do is as picking this stuff apart is being able to be like, oh, and it's there, and it's there, and it's there, and it's fun.
yeah. Well, it's kind of like it's like it's pollination. It's
Yeah.
like the flower blooms, and then all this stuff gets blown off of
Mm-hmm.
it and lands in different places and grows and changes, and
Yeah.
maybe that's a little bit of artistic way of looking at it, but I think it's just a fun like. I think for me, that's one of the most appealing things about film is seeing those little like connections and stuff.
Yeah.
There's a great, I think it was, I gotta look up. I want to make sure I'm getting the names right here, but the Criterion collection does their Criterion Closet where they invite celebrities
Mm-hmm.
to pick out movies at the in this closet that from their collection. They had John David Washington and Malcolm Washington in there, who are the sons of Denzel Washington. And Malcolm Washington's like, "Oh man, I got this like amazing box set by," and he's like going on about like he's talking ironically about like the references that directors make to each other and the way that cinema sits in a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, and I just think that's so cool. Then John David shows up and he's like, "Jackie Chan box set. It's just fun. It's cool. I love it."
Heck
And it's just
yeah.
like, I think that kind of, ironically, that kind of, that's the vibe of the podcast, I think. But it's also,
Yeah.
this movie's just cool, but it's also
Mm-hmm.
this hugely influential thing. And I think that that's one of I think that's why I love it so much. It's also like such
Yeah.
a tightly contained little story
Mm-hmm.
that works so well being adapted to other mediums, to other settings, and I love it. I love it
Yeah,
so
I mean,
much.
there's something really cool and fun about simple stories for that reason exactly,
Mhm.
right? In that at the end of the day, humans we're just really fancy animals, and I mean that in the best, most complimentary kind of way. Insofar as we respond to patterns, we respond to very specific stories, have very similar problems, like and that kind of thing. And so when you come right down to it, things like love, things like revenge, things like power, whatever, they're all very relatable. And if you have a story that is so very self-contained where you have this one tricky character, like you have Puck, you have Anansi, you have all sorts of things like that in mythology, you have Coyote, and you just see it over and over and over and over and over again. And this is just another application of that, of this, there's this tricksy little character that goes between these two groups, and they're like playing off of each other. And like, there are Anansi stories about that. There are Coyote stories about that. There are all sorts of things. And the and this is going to push us into kind of our next guardrails, and we try really hard to stick to this, but I feel like sometimes it's just vibes, man, and I'm okay with that, is that when we have things like Kurosawa, where nowadays it's like, oh, I watch Kurosawa because I'm fancy and I'm a film nerd and whatever. No, knocks against current company.
Wow.
Ben is giving me such a look. It's also good to remember that things like this film, things like the old black and whites, things like Shakespearean plays, things like Charles Dickens, things like whatever stuff that we refer to nowadays of like big C culture or popular or whatever. Even when we get into artists of like Van Gogh and whatever, there's they were popular in their time, right? They weren't these highfalutin like untouchables necessarily. Like a Spielberg movie is still just a fun beach flick because it's Jaws, but it's also like a cultural touchstone nowadays.
Mhm.
And that's what I love about our podcast is that we like to play with that, you know? And I think if we dive really deep into that, like diving backwards from Yojimbo here for a hot second, but like that differential between vibes and like technical proficiency really boils down to there's this thing that somebody made because they thought it would be cool and tell a story that means something to them, and you're like, this is how they did it, and I'm like, and this is how it made me feel, and that's very human. And I love that.
Yeah.
And Yojimbo does the cross-cultural pollination piece very cool, like you mentioned the Dashiell Hammett and like and maybe that's where like that noir feeling for me came from, of because I'm like a noir nerd and I like watching that stuff. And you have this very trickster like bouncing around and like poking at people and be like, hey, hey, I can do this, I can. But he's also just kind of there for himself a little bit. Like he's a good man. He saves the lady from certain, and I quote, ravishing. And he saves the town. Yeah. He says it's going to be quiet now. And then at the end, he just leaves. There's no like Seven Samurai has this lovely party at the end, and they're all like, this isn't a celebration for us, this is a celebration for them, and it's very thoughtful and lovely, and like they go off in the distance and they zoom in on the sword and the flag and all these things. But at the same time, at this one, he's just like, okay, it's gonna be quiet now, bye, and he just leaves. There's no pomp and circumstance. It's great. I don't know.
It's also deeply like, he's like, oh, great, gonna be some peace and quiet now. He says this like 5 seconds after he's murdered like 20 dudes. Yeah. And half the town is on fire. Like, there are dead bodies everywhere. There's still people like the village is still traumatized. And he's like, mission accomplished, no problem. Got it. Nailed it. Clean up the mess, not my problem.
No, that's not what he's paid for. He's paid to make the mess and take care of the garbage, and then he leaves.
He cleans up the town. He succeeds in what he set out to do. Yeah. He's not there to solve the other problems. He solved the big problem, which is also coming back to like the gallows humor of it all. He's like, like his sword still basically has blood on it, and he's like, oh, thank God, peace and quiet. Like, it's just it's so funny. The humor in this is deeply hilarious, because before he comes into town, he's at the farm, and like the young farm boy is like, I'm gonna live fast and die young. I'm gonna join up with the gang. Screw you guys. My God. My parents aren't cool. I'm out of here.
I love that the lady right at the start says like, kids these days are all mad, and I'm like, man, things change. And they say this exactly the same. Like, this was
Plus c'est la même chose. It's very funny. It's also funny how like weirdly modern the subtitles feel in this. Like,
oh my God, so modern.
Like very contemporary. They don't feel dated. They feel very like fresh and very like full of banter and kind of like sick one-liners every so often.
Yeah, like this is a movie from 1961, so it's not, I mean, in the context of apparently somehow that's 90 years ago almost. I don't want to think about it.
Okay, hang on. No. It's not almost.
6, 7, 8, 9, 40, 50, 60 years ago. Sorry, I
Yes.
can math. Listen.
It's a while ago.
It's a long time. It's still a long time ago.
Yeah.
And so like it's still relatively modern, even if it is fodder for Halloween parties, the 60s. But also, it's not as old as, obviously, it's the movie itself. It takes place as like the 1800s or whatever, right?
Yeah, 1860, I think, is the year that is cited.
So like, it's they still, obviously I can't speak to the Japanese, but the way they have subtitled it keeps it like very, it's like it's like the inverse of the modern Shakespeare that has Leonardo DiCaprio in it.
Yeah.
Where it's like everything is modern, but the speech is old fashioned. It would be, just do like a very highfalutin, whatever, Verona, but in modern parlance. That feels fun, and it kind of makes it more like, not relatable, but like timely in a way. I don't know.
Yeah, it's very whatever work has been done with the translation has also done some like transliteration and kind of like effort to preserve some sort of cultural context. I think like it certainly doesn't feel archaic in the way that a period piece would, because this movie is set 100 years before it was filmed. Like and certainly like the appearance of a gun, of an old-timey Western revolver is like major cause for concern for some of the characters. And because like we're talking about like the one guy who shows up who's not immediately fooled by Sandro's storytelling and trickster tendencies, is the guy who just has a gun. His superpower is he has a gun. I love like the way that he reveals this is that he like unfolds it from within his kimono, and everyone's like, whoa, a gun. Wow.
Yes. He just wastes so many bullets. I like that they did the bullet counting thing. It's like, I've already used 2 bullets, it's empty. And then there's a third one. You're like, oh no, kill surprise. And you're like, what?
And he's just such a cartoonish villain in some ways. Like there's that bit where they set the house on fire, and he like turns to face the camera and give a sinister like laugh, and then like fire bursts from the window behind him. It's so silly, and they knew what they were doing. They're like, this guy's bad. This villain is Unosuke, and he is played by Tetsuya Nakadai, who was another frequent Kurosawa collaborator. He shows up in this. He shows up in the sequel to this as a different character.
Because spoilers.
Yeah.
He dies at the end.
He was in High and Low, which we talked about, as a very different character. Not just because of the jump in setting, but he's a very like kind-hearted police inspector there, which is jarring because if you're watching a bunch of Kurosawa movies and you're like, cool, I'm going to watch Yojimbo, I'm going to watch the sequel, Sandro, and then I'll watch High and Low. You're like, wow, this dude who was like a pure, like scenery chewing villain is suddenly like very subdued and kind. That's weird. But it's wonderful at the same time. So yeah, I love so much about this. I love the way that it really kind of like pulls in its influences and puts them back out into the world. Like the notion of like, pop culture versus high art. I think there's a tendency to kind of like throw this in with a bunch of Kurosawa's other like dramas. This is just an action movie. This is just a fun it's a fun action movie. And I think like we were talking a little bit about how the kind of like material demands of entertainment kind of butt up against creative intent or artistic intent. And to that extent, I think it's a lot of movies that we might see are probably the results of a compromise between like these two different conflicting kind of pulls on the work. And sometimes it works out really well, and sometimes it doesn't. Like I'm not going to try and pretend that a movie like I loved watching Avengers Endgame. I think that's a really fun movie to watch. I don't think it has a lot to say about some of its subject matter, but it
Yeah.
doesn't mean I don't like it. Doesn't mean I don't think that there's
Yeah.
value in it. And so I think it's
And-
like
yeah.
navigating that line of like sometimes something can just be fun and entertaining, and sometimes something can make you think deep thoughts, and sometimes it can do both, or sometimes it's just like you're basically just watching an extended music video, and that's also cool. Like,
Yeah, I mean,
there's value in all of it. There's joy and pleasure in all of
Totally.
it, I think.
Yeah, because you also get the other side of it of like the David Lynch's collection of
Mhm.
a lot of them are like, okay, David, tone it down a little bit so it can be marketable. Or then you have things like Hundreds of Beavers, which I can only imagine most studios would not see that. It's not even a script and be like, yeah, we'll fund this for
Yeah.
sure. Please. But at each, it's not even a sliding scale. It's just like, we have dips of that, dabs of that, and it turns into something cool
Mhm.
to somebody. And that's kind of fun, right? And with like the financial puzzle, particularly of movies, is so hefty because it involves so many people
Yeah.
and so much, even just the administration costs alone and all these things. Whereas like I can paint in my office for pretty cheap. We can make a podcast for almost no money generally, unless
Yeah.
we start doing like ads or whatever, right? And like the challenges of, and we're seeing this a lot in video games too, of like big studios versus little studios versus financial load and all that stuff, and being able to create cool art in different ways. Anyway,
Yeah.
tangent. But yeah, the fact that this was an action movie, it is an action movie. I
Yeah.
shouldn't put that in past tense. And also can be a touchstone of really cool, like his visual signature throughout the film, same with High and Low, same with Seven Samurai, is like, oh yeah, I'm watching a Kurosawa movie. I know what I'm in for.
Yeah.
There's some cool shots in there that I'm like, oh yeah, give me that like perfect perspective down like off this roof with our hero in the foreground and everyone else being chaos down on the ground, and it's like, oh, so good.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, it's like the tight blocking and composition. And when I say tight, I don't mean like scrunched up. I just mean like he's real good at it. He's real good
Yeah.
at doing that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And in some cases, that does mean things are clearly scrunched up, but no one's acting like that's the case. There's that bit where Sandro is talking to Ganji, the izakaya owner, and Ganji's giving him the lay of the land. And he like slides up the window coverings, and there's like a
so
little,
good.
miniature scene in miniature almost occurring perfectly framed between them as they're looking out the window. So
Yes.
to think about like, it's a long take because it's not like it cuts and then we see this. It's like they're sitting in one spot conversing. You see a bit of movement in the background, and the camera follows as they go to the other window. It opens up. Then we see the scene occurring in there. So the timing that it would take to be like, okay, these guys have to hit these marks and hit their lines at the perfect time that, Mifune and his scene collaborator here stop talking. Like, just like the coordination of that, I think, is probably not
really
as hard.
cool.
It's really cool. It's not as hard as
Yeah.
I might be making it out to be. But, it's not simple.
It's not-
It takes
right.
consideration and thought and time. And I love that. One of the things that I feel when I see a Kurosawa movie is that there's a lot of consideration given into where a character is standing, what they're doing in a scene, the movement that is occurring in the back. Another cool thing in this is that when you have these, like, there are several shots that are very like static and just kind of characters talking, but there's something happening elsewhere in the scene to spice up the frame and give some dynamism to it. Whether
I'm
that's,
pretty sure you said that exact line in High and Low.
Oh, probably, yeah.
Almost exactly.
Yeah, but it's especially notable in here, and you get it when there's the big showdown at the end where he's walking through there. He's the big kind of like, it's a Western, basically. It becomes a Western, and they're doing the slow walk through the main dragon town. And, you got the wind whipping across and it's picking up like dust, and you see this movement elsewhere in the frame. So it's not just like slow, deliberate. There's a bit of like energy to it. You get it when like there's the heavy rainfall, and Sandro's talking about his plans to the tavern owner Ganji, and like they're just talking, but the rain creates some more movement in there to kind of to add some interest to it. I think like there's no, even like the stuff that would be very expositional and very explanatory gets a little bit more from this kind of like thoughtfulness that goes into the composition, and that's like a huge thing for me. And then of course like the depth of field, the deep focus, which we talked about in Citizen Kane as being, hey, it's hard to get people in the foreground and the background to be completely perfectly in focus, and Kurosawa does it very well. I think he used telephoto lenses, I want to say. I don't know a ton about lenses, so I might be making things up here, but he does it very well. He does it in a lot of his movies, and I think particularly in Yojimbo, it shows up as a cool, like, this thing's happening in the background, this thing's happening in the foreground, and you can see all of it perfectly clearly.
I mean, he also does a lot of work with height, because there's moments, obviously, where he's doing the thing with the innkeeper where they're kind of on the same level and looking across to the next room or the next building or whatever, which truly beautiful exposition. 10 out of 10, no notes. Like it was so cool to see it, and they did this similar to like Hundreds of Beavers, where like we the audience don't know about this town or anything, so our hero comes into town and the tavern keeper is his like key guy that just walks them through everything that's happening and who all the key players are, and they do that so well. But then later on, there's a lot of shots of our hero up on a building looking down, and like visually it's very cool, but also he's like above the fray, and that's cool. And like there are a lot of moments like that where he plays again with power and height, similar to how he did in High and Low, where you're like, oh, I see what you're doing here, because there's also like those shots again almost frame for frame like how he's done it elsewhere, of like our hero, the tavern keeper, and I think the husband of the woman who has been kidnapped. Is that the one I'm thinking of, where all three of them are kind of sitting in a line?
Yeah.
And the way they're all kind of back to back having this conversation, not a natural way to sit, but a very cool shot.
Yeah.
And like gives the actors a really cool opportunity to just very tight focus on faces and act for that kind of setting a theater stage, not just a movie, if you will, the hand wave. But like he does little things like that where he is really playing to a visual, like, because I think you sent me a thing forever ago that he would draw his scenes and stuff, right? And this made me think of that a lot, of him as an artist, like a visual artist, not in addition to being a filmmaker and seeing the screen as his canvas, which is really cool.
Yeah, I mean, like we've talked about that in the past, certainly, and like Kurosawa was a painter. Like it was a hobby of his. Certainly, he was he liked fishing, he liked painting. He did some incredible painted storyboards for, I think it was his movie Kagemusha or Ron, possibly. They're both incredible movies, and the storyboards are incredible. So certainly that kind of like level of storyboarding, I think, is something he did in a lot of his movies. He really planned things out, really thought about how it was going to be shot and how it was going to look. And it shows. I think that there's a real keen eye for composition. And that's one of the things, again, that stands out when I watch his movies. It's one of the things that I really enjoy, is that they have a look, they have a feel to them that is very engaging. Still shots from Kurosawa movies look pretty good in isolation. So that's a really fun thing. And it means that things like that image I flipped your way from, that Star Wars show, where it's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna sit up and notice that when someone does that thing, because you can't hide that kind of influence, that iconography. It's just like, there it is. He's doing that thing.
It's like if someone Yeah, if like someone sits on a gargoyle and looks down like, oh, it's Batman.
Yeah.
Hey, Batman, what's up?
Yeah, it's like the repeated image that kind of gets used and repurposed across other things. Like it's a bit like if someone does this thing, this kind of like Yojimbo thing, it's kind of like the 2001 A Space Odyssey match cut, where like the bone gets thrown up and it flips through the air,
Yes.
and then suddenly it's a space station hanging in space. They do it in the Barbie movie, where a kid throws up a Barbie, and then it becomes, I can't remember what it becomes, but they do such an homage to it. It is, and it's still very deliberately, like beyond just like, hey, let's do the 2001 match cut. They're explicitly parodying the intro to 2001 with like the little girls playing with their Barbies in this strange space. Anyways, that's a whole other thing. Yeah.
I mean, that also kind of speaks back to our adaptation, influence, cultural pollination. I'm a voice actor. I podcast. I can words sometimes. Is that and we talked about this, I think, during our What Dreams May Come episode and a bunch of others, I'm sure, where because particularly now, as we are so very inundated with all sorts of media, being music, visual arts, movies, TV shows, marketing materials, you name it. What has kind of evolved to be sort of a meme culture, like. I swear to God, every single Game Changer episode, there's at least one or two memes. Like, I think the last one is like, sorry sluts, of Sam just being like, oopsie.
Yeah.
And like, there's all sorts of cross-pollination that happens, and particularly for directors like Kurosawa, like Spielberg, like, who's the guy? Wes Anderson. I remembered it by myself. Wes Anderson, who have such very distinct, visual style. You're like, oh, I know that's a Wes Anderson movie.
Not hard to spot those ones.
Not hard to spot. Not hard to spot. Pinocchio director, please.
Oh, Guillermo del Toro.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. You can spot that a mile away and sideways, you know, like, and the fact that Kurosawa has like retained the movies themselves, the visuals themselves, their popularity,
right. I get you.
And relatability and impact speaks so well to the power and thoughtfulness that has kind of evolved from them, if that makes sense.
Well, and even like, I'm thinking of like visual identifiers and like almost directorial signatures as you're mentioning that. And I think more recently for us as a podcast, like we watched, by the time this comes out, people will have heard our, I think, deep discussion on Y Tu Mamá También, which is an Alfonso Cuarón movie. And it's got a look. Alfonso Cuarón has a style and a look, and you see it in that, and it pops up in like Children of Men and in his other films, despite his like, I think one of his stated things in that movie was like, break as many rules as possible, like make the anti-film school movie. Ironically, his signature still comes through heavily on that, I think. But yeah, it's the idea of like, sometimes people just have an eye for things. They have an instinct for things, and it's identifiable. And I think that's one of the coolest things that I love about digging into film. It's one of the things that really appeals to me about it. And what you were talking about like the kind of like mimetic nature of culture, in a sense. I'm going to get real ornery here and say, I'm so tired of like, the kind of like the film like cinephile vibes based like Instagram accounts that are just like oh, but look at the parallels. It's like, they're not parallels, it's an illusion, it's a reference, it's deliberate. It's not just like a coincidence that there are these parallels. There's a term for these things, and you can use the terms. It doesn't make you less cool to use the terms. It's cool to know these things. It's cool to understand these things, and you don't have to, but it is just an added layer of enjoyment that you can get if you
Yeah.
so choose to engage with it. And man, I'm so frustrated because like I try to follow a lot of cool film things on Instagram, and it's just like the most mindless like accounts that just regurgitate trivia, air quotes trivia, that is generally just like made up or has been thoroughly debunked. Like there's one that was I'm just on a tangent now, but it was a clip from Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, and is it Jane Russell is in that? I think it's Jane Russell. I can't
The
recall.
woman. Oh, when she gets knocked in the
She
water.
gets
Is
knocked
this what
into
you're gonna?
into
Yeah.
the water, and everyone's like, "Oh wow, she stayed in character the whole time." I'm like, "There's a cut. There's a cut because she gets knocked into the water. The camera explicitly cuts, and then she's back on being lifted out. Like, that's not. Did she stay in character for like the 40-minute setup that it would take to redo this and adapt?
Yeah.
Oh, it drives me nuts because it's like we mythologize these things about movies that aren't the interesting things. Like, it's just people make up random nonsense when the real nonsense is way more interesting. Oh, that's my rant.
We are going to talk about that movie at some point,
Yes.
and I look forward to you ranting a little bit more about some of that. But I think there's a bit of an obsession with obsession might be a strong word, but a fondness for people thinking that like there's something magical about the way movies are made or the way art is made or the whatever. And I'm like, yes, and also sometimes you just mess around and something cool happens. Or alternatively, like Kurosawa did, you plan a lot and sometimes things change and that's okay. That's just life. But like the hyper preparation or not, or hyper awareness or not of tropes, of technical knowledge, all this stuff is just the way different people do stuff. But also, like, I don't know. Man, this movie really has us on a tangent.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things that I've learned since starting voiceover is just like how much technical knowledge is necessary. And like it's fascinating and really cool. And it's not just hanging out. I mean, I knew this already, and I think I've said this already. It's not just hanging out in a booth and making silly voices. Obviously not. There is so much incredible skill that goes on behind it. But a lot of people are like, oh, that's just fun. And they're like, you're right, it is fun. But also, there's a lot of stuff you have to know, like on even just the machinery and stuff and how a camera works and the way Kurosawa was able to leverage his knowledge, or in the case of Orson Welles, leverage his lack of knowledge to just play around and figure it out. Both of those things are valid, and both of those things were not accidents. They were in experiments. They were, let's try something new to see what happens, and that's really cool, and I love that. And when a happy accident happens, like an actress gets knocked in the water instead of popping up onto the side of the pool, they check to make sure she's okay. And then they're like, actually, that worked really well. Let's just do that. Like
let's just roll with it.
Yeah. Like in How I Met Your Mother, when Lily tells Marshall his father passed away, they hid that from him. Spoilers, I guess, for a 15-year-old TV show. But they hid that from him so he could respond naturally. And that was a conscious choice that they made to do that. But also, like, a cool opportunity. So, like, little things like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think there's magic in that planning, in that intentionality, and trying to bring us back to what we're trying to talk about today, which is Kurosawa's visual signature and deep focus and, you know, pacing and stuff. He's very intentional with it. Like, so, like, the thing that I pointed out before we started chatting about this particularly is for each of his movies, the way he gives those personality tics to everybody of like figure out a thing. Like in Seven Samurai, I think you said it was the rubbing his head because he had to shave his head because he was now bald. In this one was our hero always had his arm in his kimono and he'd like scratch at his shoulder as if biting for ticks because Kurosawa told Tsushime like, hey man, or Toshiro, sorry,
Yeah.
Mifune. I mixed his name. I put his name together. He told him, "You're a wolf," and so he was like biting at fleas and like little little details like that are very thoughtful and like a kind of an improvised, but also not really, are the things that really bring his characters and his world, I think, to life, because it's the details that make people unique.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy that part of how he kind of directs his cast to really like stand out in a crowd.
Yeah. I love the attention to detail. And I think like, you know, our big digression here, I think the thing that really stands out to me is that it's the to make something look effortless takes a lot of work.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And I think that there's a mythologization in fandom around filmmaking that they just improvised it or they just did this. It's like, well, no, something might have come out of an improvisation, but then they workshop it, they work through it. Some things are thrown in. That does happen, but you know, it's a disservice to say that everything is effortless. I think the people work hard at this. Creators work hard at this. The actors work hard at this, and you know, much as we wanted to think that something is like tossed off and very like emanating from this like free spirit of creativity, that might be the spark of something, but it takes a lot of effort to bring that across the finish line, so to speak. Yeah, and
it's a big yes and.
Yeah. And I think that's a thing that kind of gets lost a lot, I think, in a lot of modern discussion of this, that there's a lot of craft that goes into filmmaking, whether you think a movie's good or not. Whether you think a movie's good or not, or any work of art is, that there is craft at work. And that is something that tends to get forgotten because we really value that idea of like effortlessness, effortless coolness. And, you know, I don't know. I think that there's a lot of value in acknowledging that like people have talent, people have skill at this, and they develop that over time. And I wish that was something that kind of got a little more attention, because there's some things in movies that we kind of like think of as being very simple and straightforward probably take a ton of effort beyond what we might think of as like a normal amount. And again, I'm coming back to like the deep focus and depth of field. We talked about this during Citizen Kane. It takes a lot of work to make that look good, to make that effective. But the payoff is that it just looks like, they just let the camera run. And but no, it takes a lot of consideration. You got to have people moving in a certain way. And I think that's really cool. And
and the blocking has to be just right, because if our hero and the tavern keeper are standing in a certain place, the action has to happen within the gaps between them.
Yeah, they got to hit their marks.
There are marks on the floor or whatever to be like, you have to be here and here and here at these times, or else you're going to be completely blocked and the shot's useless. Yeah. Like little things like that. Yeah. Which is funny because the fight scenes were just kind of like, I mean, they were just like 40 guys going at each other with, I presume, wooden swords or whatever, boffer weapons. Yeah. If you are of the LARP
stunt weapons,
folks, stunt weapon. Thank you. But it's just like a bunch of flailing, and I can only assume there was some choreography, but it didn't feel like a John Wick kind of choreography. It just felt like hey, there's a lot of chaos. Yeah. Let's fight and go.
It's like the Lord of the Rings, there's like the behind the scenes, I think it's of like Dominic Monaghan is saying like John Rhys Davies, who played Gimli, like he had very different approaches to stunt work, whereas like Viggo Mortensen was like into the choreography and like figuring it all out with these stunt performers. And John Rhys Davies was like, all right, you come at me first and I'll hit you, and you come at me second, then I'll hit you, and you come at me third and then I'll hit you. It was just like,
it's a very Gimli way to fight, isn't it?
Like, we're just gonna do it.
Still only counts as one.
And I think very like the vibe in this might have very much just been like Mifune being like, all right, you guys come at me, and then I'm gonna kill you first and kill you second, and we'll make it work. So it's like, it's kind of like the rest of the movie is like, this is like a really like corny analogy, I think, but the rest of the movie is like very classically composed. It is like the orchestra is all working together with the conductor. The fight scenes are like a jazz ensemble, just kind of like, let's go for it, let's do it, and it works. It's fun.
Yeah, and if we look at Seven Samurai, like, that is an intentional choice because we're also seeing that these two gangs are kind of ragtag. They're not really up to our hero's standard. And so he has a much more, like, even when he murders the half dozen folks who were guarding the lady, he's a lot more, like, methodical, whereas those big group fight scenes are very, like, chaos. But it's also partially because the gangs are mercenaries. And I think you said, like, Ronins? Is that, am I right? Yeah.
I think technically, like, because Sandro, our titular Yojimbo, just a bodyguard, is just he's a wandering samurai. He's a masterless samurai. So he's Ronin. A bunch of the gangsters would be, like, I don't want to, like, completely jump in here and derail from what we're saying, but we had a whole historical digression in the Seven Samurai episode, but a lot of Yakuza Japanese gangs are descended or had their origins in Ronin, who are masterless samurai who kind of turned to crime or racketeering of some sort.
Yeah, and so their fighting style in the movie, even particularly when our hero is up on the top of the building looking down at them, kind of doing the prosturing, like, it's got that, like, in a musical, two gangs dance,
West Side Story.
The West Side Story, they start clapping and they're like, but they're like
snaps,
like, come at me, bro.
Yeah.
And they're just, like, backing off each other and going in and backing off each other and, like, that stuff. Even if it wasn't, because we don't know, even if it wasn't actively, like, okay, you step here and then you step back and you step here and you step back and blah, blah, like that, the tone is very intentional and it gives you a very clear sense of who these fighters are as an aggregate, because they are cowardly, they are, or even if they're not cowardly, they're trying to pretend that they're tough, but they're not tough. This samurai comes into town, he's like, I told you 6 men wasn't enough because I killed them all in one go. And you're like, you.
It's the bit, because he cuts down 2 guys instantly and dismembers the third. And he's walking back and he's like, hey, coffin maker, you should probably get 2 coffins ready. And then he stops. He's like, probably make it 3.
Yeah.
Now, that is a good bit. I will say, A Fistful of Dollars does this bit a lot better, I think. Like, it is an improvement, because Clint Eastwood rides into town on a mule. These, like, I think it's like 3 guys, they shoot at the feet of his mule. The mule, like, books off, and he, like, falls off and has to go recover the mule. But he, like, kind of gets the lay of the land, and he comes back to them. And as he's walking up to them, he passes the coffin maker, and he's like, hey, you might want to get 2 coffins ready. And he goes up, and then Clint Eastwood has the thing. It's like, my mule doesn't, like, I know you guys were just messing around, but my mule, he's real. He holds a grudge, and you got to apologize to him. And they're like, what? And he's like, oh, you're not going to? Okay. And guns them 3 guys down. And then he's walking back. He's like, my mistake, make it 3 coffins. And it's just like the setup for the bit is a little, it's very
good.
Cool. So it's a little kind of like tossed off in this movie, but the bit is good in A Fistful of Dollars. This is like a hard-boiled samurai movie, but also a Western samurai movie.
Silly.
Yeah, fun.
Can I just say, the death of the guy with the gun is absolutely absurd. Yeah, he dies like 5 times. He's like, I can't shoot the gun. And he falls. And he comes up. He's like, you better hope that know that I'll be waiting. And then he falls. Like, everything's going dark. And I'm like, oh, just die already, my guy. Stop.
It's like, I'll see you in hell. Pretty soon, maybe. Eventually.
Make sure my gun is on me.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Oh, my God. My guy.
Yeah. This is also like a bit, I think, that maybe A Fistful of Dollars has a slight edge, because like in this, it's just like the slow walk, and it's like, he's got the gun. Like, how are you going to beat a gun? And he, like, goes to draw the gun, and Sandro throws a knife at him and hits him in the arm. And it's like, oh, he just took out his gun arm. Problem solved. Like, And in A Fistful of Dollars, it's Clint Eastwood comes back into town, and the guy has like this rifle and like shoots him. Clint Eastwood falls down, gets back up, keeps going, shoots him again. Same thing happens, and then the guy's like almost out, and like fires another bullet, like the last one before he has to reload. And Clint Eastwood drops like the plate of armor that he has had on under his poncho, like the improvised armor, and then like lays, just like takes them all out. So that's a good bit too. I don't know. It's just like, sometimes you want something more dramatic like that, and sometimes you just want like, I'm gonna throw a knife at you. Like, it's just good.
Yeah. This is a very silly samurai movie. Like, I know you said it's spoiled, but it also, he gets a little rickshaw ride. They talk about the rich guy has a big fancy rickshaw, and then he gets rickshawed in a coffin. Yeah. And then you get a solid like 5 minutes of him. And this is one of those really cool long shots that looks really good, but also you just see the lid of the coffin jangle as he talks and tries to get a good view of the fighting. And you're like, that's very silly. What's happening? This is very fun.
Yeah. And when Sandro is captured and beaten up, and his way out is like, I'm going to hide in a box. And they're just like, where'd he go? He's gone. So
don't look in the light places, look in the dark places.
And then he escapes, and then he gets back to his buddy, and his buddy's like, are you okay? He's like, I'm perfectly fine. And then collapses unconscious. Like,
I'll be fine after 3 days of sleep.
Yeah, it's very funny. And then he just practices knife throwing for a bit, and and then of course the end, it was like, oh, finally some peace and quiet, and the town is on fire. There are dead bodies in the streets. Like, sir.
Yup. Bye.
Sir, this is not okay.
It's far away from our lovely festival with music and farming and whatnot from our original Seven Samurai.
Yeah, the bittersweet ending where the villagers are celebrating, and the samurai are like, man, we lost a lot of people. Like, and there's also that bit where I got to look up the actor's name. I had a note on it. But there's the bit where they hire Sandro, and they're like, we're going to totally clean up this town. This is our town now. Isn't that right, seasoned warrior we hired earlier? And that guy's like, absolutely. And then it cuts to like, that guy's like climbing over the fence with the little, like, he's got the bundle of his belongings on the end of a stick, and he climbs up and he sees Sandro watching him, and he just like waves and then runs off down the road. Like, good luck.
Yes.
That guy.
Yeah, this is your problem now, my guy.
Not my problem. That actor is Susumu Fujita, who was an early star in Kurosawa's wartime movies, notably Sanshiro Sugata, where he's like the hero. So there's like this passing of the torch from one star to another in this bit, which I enjoy. God, this is a deeply, I don't want to like say silly, but it's a very funny movie considering it's about like a gang war. And if you like this, and we got to watch, I think I added the sequel, which is much more explicitly a comedy.
Oh, good.
So, just like, what if Sandro had to look after a bunch of total nerd samurai and keep them out of harm's way? That's the sequel. That's what it's all about. So,
good.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so exciting. One thing I want to make sure we touch on before we end, because we're getting close to that time, was his collaborators. Because as part of Kurosawa's like visual signature style, being able to, there are so many. I mean, Mike Flanagan is my favorite example of this right now. If for some reason Mike Flanagan ever hears this, for the love of God, please, I will do anything to be in one of your movies, shows. I don't care, whatever, anything. But he just has like a cast of people that he's like, oh, this one and this one and this one, and then I put them all in a bag and I shake them up, and then I pull them out, and then that's my cast. And then I put them all back in, and I shake it back up, and then there's my cast. And you're like, okay, I see. I change it up. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. This is like Kurosawa's frequent collaborators kind of were known as the Kurosawa Gumi, which is just the Kurosawa group. So, like, notably, of course, Toshiro Mifune is in so many Kurosawa movies. Tetsuya Nakadai is in so many Kurosawa movies. Half the supporting cast is in so many Kurosawa movies. I think Takeshi Shimura, who was the lead, the wise old samurai in Seven Samurai, shows up as the sake brewer
Yeah.
in this. Was also the lead in Akira, which is a credible drama that Kurosawa made. I think the composer is I'm literally like looking this up as we're recording and making sure I get this right. The composer was Masaru Sato, who did Throne of Blood, The Lower Depths, The Hidden Fortress, The Bad Sleep Well, Yojimbo, Sandro, High and Low, Redbeard. Just a real run of collaborations.
Yep.
Ishiro Honda was his like assistant director on. I want to say he was the assistant director on this. I don't know. I can't confirm that.
What, you don't already have IMDb open, my guy? What are you doing?
But, I'm just looking at this page right now. Takashi Shimura, who I've mentioned, was in 21 samurai films. Kurosawa films. Mifune was in 16 films. Fujita was in 8. Tetsuya Nakadai was in 6. He just had like people that he liked working with, people that he could count on. And I think that's
Legit.
like, it's kind of that studio system as well. Like this is all with Toho Studios.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of like in Hollywood and Europe, I think you have a lot of similar like the studio players who show up in a bunch of different things. The fun thing,
sign with MGM, you're in MGM movies for however long and whatever.
Yeah. And I think one of the fun things about this is like how these people show up in different movies, particularly the actors, because there's a lot of playing with and against type. So like Mifune builds this reputation as being like very like energetic and bold, and then like in High and Low he's very reserved for a chunk of the movie, and then in later appearances he's in I think it's The Bad Sleep Well, he's extremely reserved and closed off. Tetsuya Nakadai plays villains for a bit, and then he gets to show up as the kindly inspector. Takashi Shimura is like the wise old samurai, but also shows up here as like this, potentially criminal abetting sake brewer, things like that. I don't know. It's just all this sort of they play with like the mentor relationship. They play with like the who's the hero, who's the villain. I enjoy that. That's a fun thing to kind of like watch for if you finish this episode and decide I'm going to watch every Kurosawa movie I can. It's just a fun thing to watch for. Yeah.
And if you do, tell us about it because we want to know.
Yeah.
Get in the comments, to quote a meme of Brendan Lee Mulligan. The thing of Mifune particularly, I liked watching him in Seven Samurai and then in this because you see him as this like giant chaos goblin.
Yeah.
And then here he's just this really chill older dude who's just like, okay, I'm going to do this thoughtfully and not like for glory and not for like whatever. And he's just like, I don't know, just chill and it's fun. And like seeing that range from him, and then obviously including and looping in High and Low and anything else is just like, the man could act.
Yeah.
My God.
Yeah. I think that's the cool thing with like these kind of frequent collaborators is you get to see their range.
Yeah.
And, like you're talking about with the Mike Flanagan stuff. You're like, oh, you were such a dastardly villain in this series. And then they show up as like a hero in the next. You're like, oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Well done. Surprising.
Yes. Yeah. Great job. So like, oh my goodness. I'm going to find his name. Raul Coley because I saw him in the zombie TV show whose name iZombie. Yeah. And then he was the cute, cuddly romance gardener, chef, in Haunting at Hill House. And then he was the absolute a-hole son in...
Well, it's not saying much in that series. They were all awful.
They were all awful, but like his, and stuff like that, like seeing that in that big cast, rotational, again, highlighting of the range, and here of Mifune and all the others of being able to really like
Yeah.
acting.
And it builds that kind of like trust and rapport that people are willing to. It can bring out some of the best work in some people, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, once you know how someone else works and how they don't work and things they are or not good enough, you can really play with that to make it, you know, more impactful and provide for them good compliments of, well, you're not good at this, or like, you need this thing to bring that out in you. Let's use this person because I know they're good at that. And like, so good. So good.
So fun.
So fun. Okay. that brings us to about an hour, and I think at least a third of it was random tangents, and I'm okay with that. I hope you all were as well. Ben, if you want to learn about film, why Yojimbo?
Hey, if you want an avenue into watching the works of Akira Kurosawa, this is probably, I think, one of the best ones to start with, because it is just an action movie. It's got a lot going on. It's a lot of fun. And, you know, you can go more serious or more silly after this. You can kind of choose your own adventure, so to speak. This was one of the movies that really got me into Kurosawa once upon a time, so I really love and appreciate it for that. I think it's just also a great way to highlight like the craft that goes into movie making. You know, a lot of it's very subtle, but nonetheless, it's there, it's noticeable, and it's very cool. So, yeah, that's my recommendation. All right, if you just want to watch something on Friday, though, why Yojimbo?
Because you have to record a podcast about it the next day. No,
fair.
Because no, seriously, it is because it's fun. And it's very simple and similar to Seven Samurai, and even more so, I think. The visual style makes it very easy to see who everyone is, even because it's a black and white, right?
Yeah.
And so again, I'm not really good with faces all that much. So having a very distinct tics for everybody, having very distinct like personalities, it's really easy to follow, even if you're not big on subtitles. It's a very simple story. But it's fun. The actors are great. The setting is really fun. It is really, you know, cool design, all that fun, all that stuff. And just, you know, it's another one of those things where you see it and then you're going to see it everywhere. Just absolutely everywhere. And I think that's really cool. You know who you can't see everywhere, but you can see a lot of places. You can find us at Patreon on Coffee. That was great. I don't laugh at that. That was amazing.
Was good.
Yeah, you can find us. Thank you. You can find us at Patreon as Coffee and Kurosawa. You can also find us on Blue Sky as at Coffee Kurosawa Pod. You can find me on Blue Sky and Letterboxd as Farrah Sarpkaya, and at sarpkaya.ca, where I lend my voice as a voice actor. Ben, where can the people find you?
I'm on Blue Sky as at the Benjimon, and on Letterboxd as at Benjimon. And I think that brings us to a wonderful close.
That sure does. And, well, we hope you enjoyed. Drop in the comments, like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, to quote Sandro himself. Now for some peace and quiet.